最初から助手席のシートを倒して、で、夕日が眩しいからっていうでサングラスつけて、自然に寝ちゃうんですよ。で、起きた後に、寝るかと思ったっていう。
Before the engine even started, before the car pulled out of the parking lot, could you really lean your seat back, put on sunglasses, and fall asleep knowing someone was sitting beside you?
Most people can't.
Because sleeping in the passenger seat is one of the most vulnerable things a person can do. You're placing your entire safety in someone else's hands. You don't control where the car goes. You can't react if something happens. You simply trust the driver completely. And somehow, Riku Miura did exactly that from the very beginning with Ryuichi Kihara. In a previous video, we talked about why Ryuichi Kihara spent 7 straight years picking Riku up every single morning. A teenage girl without a driver's license. A partner who made sure she always got to the rink safely. Back then, we focused on one question. Why did he keep showing up? But today, I want to talk about something different. Not why he drove, but what happened inside that car during those 6-hour drives. During a Japanese variety show, Kihara casually revealed something shocking. He said, "I'm usually the one driving because Riku-chan doesn't have a license." We already knew that part. For years, driving was simply part of his routine. But then he added something new. She gets sleepy, and honestly, I can't blame her. But she reclines the seat before the car even starts moving. Before the trip even begins. She leans the seat back, puts on sunglasses, and falls asleep almost instantly. Meanwhile, Kihara stays behind the wheel for 6 straight hours while she sleeps beside him the entire time. And when he told the story, he laughed. Yeah, I've been holding that in for a while. But the way he said it didn't sound angry at all. It sounded like someone who had accepted this reality a long time ago. Someone who had quietly allowed it for years. That's why this story feels deeper than just a funny driving habit. Because maybe the real question isn't why Kihara kept driving. Maybe the real question is this. How could Riku Miura fall asleep that easily in the first place? Of course, this is only my personal interpretation. None of us can truly define the relationship between these two people. But when you think about how few people in this world you could completely trust from the passenger seat, it becomes difficult to see this as an ordinary partnership. Let's look at the timeline. In 2019, a young Riku Miura moved to Oakville, Canada, to form a new pair with Ryuichi Kihara. At the time, Kihara was older, more experienced, and far more familiar with life overseas. In Canada, especially in suburban areas like Oakville, having a car isn't optional. You need it for everything: training, groceries, daily life. Riku didn't have a license. So every morning, Kihara picked her up and drove her to the rink. That became their normal. But here's what fascinates me. I don't think she started sleeping in the car right away. Imagine being a young girl in a foreign country, sitting in the passenger seat next to an older skating partner. You don't recline your seat and instantly fall asleep on day one. That kind of comfort takes time. Trust takes time. At some point, something changed. Kihara later described it casually. She puts on sunglasses because the sunset is bright, and then naturally falls asleep. Naturally. That word matters. She wasn't forcing herself to sleep. She wasn't trying to escape boredom. Her body simply relaxed without thinking. And people only sleep naturally in places where they feel safe. You can't sleep when you're nervous. You can't sleep when you feel anxious. If your body relaxes enough to drift off before the car even moves, it means your mind already believes, I'm safe here. Maybe that trust deepened around 2021 when they moved into the same apartment building. Or maybe it happened gradually between 2022 and 2023 while they chased the top of the skating world together. Either way, that level of comfort doesn't appear overnight. It's built little by little through years of shared routines, shared pressure, and shared exhaustion. And think about those 6-hour drives. Long roads across Canada. Trips between training camps. Endless highways before competitions. For 6 straight hours, Kihara held the steering wheel while Riku slept beside him. Maybe he listened to music. Maybe he thought about skating. Maybe he was exhausted himself. But he never woke her up. Riku later joked that she slept because practice made her tired. But Kihara trained just as hard. Actually, considering his age and physical condition, recovery was probably even harder for him. And still, he drove. Every time. Can that really be explained as simple role division? Just because one person has a driver's license? I don't think so. 6 hours behind the wheel isn't a small favor. Accepting that responsibility over and over again for 7 years says something much deeper. Whenever people describe the relationship between Riku and Ryuichi, one word always appears: trust. Even they describe it that way themselves. Kihara once said their trust in each other is unusually strong, even compared to other pairs' teams. And honestly, maybe this is what that trust actually looks like. Not speeches, not interviews, not emotional quotes, but one person reclining the passenger seat before departure and peacefully falling asleep. Anyone can say, "I trust you," but your body tells the truth. If you feel tension, you stay awake. If you feel fear, you stay alert. But when your body completely relaxes beside someone, that trust becomes real. One part of the story especially caught my attention. Rika tried to defend herself by saying, I do try to stay awake during the 6-hour drives. Kihara immediately laughed and replied, "You can't even last 5 minutes. And that exchange says everything. Because Rika knows falling asleep makes her feel guilty. That's why she makes excuses. She says she's trying. But Kihara just laughs. Not with frustration. Not with resentment. Almost affectionately. That's the voice of someone who has already accepted another person completely. Someone who no longer gets angry at their weaknesses because those weaknesses have simply become part of who they are. And honestly, I feel like that tiny conversation contains the entire story of their 7-year partnership. Riku sleeps.
Kihara drives.
Riku forgets things. Kihara double-checks everything. Riku says she's trying. Kihara laughs and says she isn't. And somewhere over those 7 years, that rhythm became their own language. In part 1, we talked about something surprisingly emotional, the fact that Riku Miura would recline the passenger seat before the car even started moving and instantly fall asleep beside Ryuichi Kihara. We explored how that probably wasn't just exhaustion but a form of trust built slowly over 7 years together. But in part 2, I want to go even deeper. Because the real question might not be why Riku slept. The real question might be this: what was happening inside those 6-hour drives while Kihara kept driving in silence? And how did those quiet moments eventually connect to the tears we saw during their retirement press conference in April 2026? Let's revisit the conversation from that TV show one more time. Kihara joked, "Well, Poo-san drove for 6 hours, you know." Poo-san is actually his nickname for himself. And honestly, even that tiny detail says something. Nicknames like that only survive after years of closeness. They become part of a private rhythm shared between two people. And then Rika laughed and said, "But during 6-hour drives, I really do try to stay awake."
Try.
That word matters. Now imagine the scene for yourself. You're driving for 6 hours. The sky outside is getting darker. Music is quietly playing in the background. Beside you, someone is asleep with the seat reclined, breathing softly without a care in the world. What would you be thinking during that drive? Maybe Kihara was thinking about competitions. Maybe he was mentally rebuilding choreography in his head. Maybe he was too exhausted to think about anything at all. But one thing feels certain. He wasn't truly alone. Because there's a huge difference between driving completely alone and driving while someone you care about is sleeping beside you. Even if they aren't talking. Even if they never open their eyes. Their presence changes the entire atmosphere inside the car. And that's why Kihara's joking comment stuck with me. I've been holding this in. If he had genuinely hated those drives, he probably would have complained years ago. He could have said, "Please stay awake," or "I'm tired of driving alone." But he never did. At least, not seriously. Instead, he laughed about it. Which means somewhere along the way, he accepted it completely. And maybe that acceptance didn't come from obligation. Maybe it came from something much deeper. There was another line from Riku that caught my attention too. Instead of saying, "I'm tired, so I fall asleep," she said, "Rika-san gets tired from practice." Did you notice that? She talked about herself almost like she was talking about someone else. And the way she said it carried this quiet feeling of, well, that can't really be helped. And Kihara accepted that. For 7 years, he accepted it, which slowly created a very specific dynamic between them.
Kihara drives.
Riku sleeps. Kihara checks the luggage. Riku forgets things. At first glance, it almost feels unfair. Like Kihara carried more responsibility. But was that really true? Because Riku once revealed something interesting about Kihara too. She said he's too serious. During the off-season, he would suddenly start strict dieting habits, and somehow she would get dragged into them too. Think about what that means. It means they lived close enough for one person's habits to reshape the other person's daily life. Kihara's routines affected Riku, and Riku's weaknesses affected Kihara. Her sleeping meant he drove 6 hours alone. Her forgetfulness meant he checked everything twice. Little by little, they built a system where each person shaped the other's everyday existence. And maybe that's why their partnership felt different from ordinary teammates. Because after 7 years, their lives no longer functioned separately. Then came February 2026. The night they won Olympic gold in Milan Cortina. Nobody outside knows what they talked about afterward. Nobody knows where they went or what they felt in private. But honestly, I keep imagining one simple scene. A quiet car ride somewhere late at night, with Riku asleep in the passenger seat while Kihara drove through the darkness. And if that really happened, then even the night they became Olympic champions wasn't extraordinary to them. It was just another version of the same life they had already been living for 7 years. Then everything changed. On April 17, 2026, they announced their retirement. 11 days later, during a press conference in Tokyo attended by nearly 200 reporters, Kihara broke down in tears. He tried to hold it back, but he couldn't. Even when Riku told him, "Don't cry," the tears kept coming. And honestly, I don't think he was crying because competitions were over. Kihara is a veteran athlete. He had already said he'd been mentally preparing for retirement for over a year. This wasn't sudden news to him. So, why did he cry that hard? I have one theory. Maybe Kihara wasn't mourning the end of skating. Maybe he was mourning the end of their everyday life. No more morning pickups. No more checking 2 bags instead of 1. No more 6-hour drives. No more quiet passenger seat naps beside him. That's not just the end of a career. That's the end of a shared life rhythm that lasted 7 straight years. And maybe that's what truly broke his heart. During that retirement press conference, Riku said something simple but devastatingly emotional. "Thank you for partnering with me. We're strongest right now. Let's finish this smiling, like RikuRyu." Most people heard that as gratitude toward a skating partner. But honestly, I think those words carried much more than that. Thank you for picking me up every morning. Thank you for checking everything for both of us. Thank you for driving 6 hours while I slept beside you. Thank you for accepting me exactly as I was. All of those emotions felt condensed into one sentence. Thank you for partnering with me. And when Kihara heard those words, he cried. Meanwhile, Riku smiled. I kept wondering why. Why could she smile while he broke down? Maybe she had emotionally prepared herself earlier. That's probably part of the answer. But I also think there's another possibility. Maybe Riku could smile because Kihara was the one falling apart instead of her. For 7 years, Kihara supported Riku while she slept peacefully beside him. And at that final press conference, the roles reversed for the very first time. This time, Riku became the one supporting him. And honestly, maybe that role reversal could only happen because of the 7 years they already shared together. In the end, the moments that truly defined their relationship probably weren't Olympic medals, world records, or standing ovations. It was the invisible time nobody ever saw. The quiet car rides. The silence. The sleeping face behind sunglasses. The man who kept driving while memorizing those ordinary moments forever. I still don't know what name to give their relationship. And honestly, maybe it doesn't need one. Because when one person can drive for 6 hours without complaint and another person can sleep peacefully beside them for 6 hours without fear, there's clearly something there that words alone can't fully explain.